Thor was a guardian of Asgard and would often respond to threats. Once a giant was making threats within the halls of Asgard, and as such, the giant and Thor dueled. It didn't last long. At the beginning of the duel, the giant threw a giant boulder at Thor, and Thor threw his hammer at the giant. The hammer actually ended up smashing through the rock and smashing into the giant's face, and I believe killing him then, but Thor definitely won the duel. During the events of Ragnarok, it is said that Thor will kill the giant serpent, Jormungand, but his victory will be short-lived. He will have already been poisoned by the snake's venom by the time he slays it, and he will take 9 steps away from its corpse before he falls dead. Thor and his wife make up one whole fertility god, essentially, where Thor brings the rain, his wife brings the actual soil and earth. In fact, her golden hair may be a representation of wheat fields. Before she was married to Thor, Sif was married to another unnamed god of archery, hunting, and skiing. Loki claims she cheated on Thor with him, but it's really unclear as to whether she actually did. Unfortunately, while there are still many known myths where she acts as a sort of catalyst for events to unfold, it seems that either there wasn't ever many myths about her or that we've lost many of them. One of Thor and Sif's children was a goddess of strength and battle called Thrud, who was said to be especially close with her father. She was seen as kind and loving, but also a warrior and a leader of warriors. Also interesting, she was said to have the ability to travel through time. Perhaps that's how she survives Ragnarok. But we really don't know very much about how or what she uses it for or anything. Unlike Thrud, Heimdall does not survive Ragnarok. This nature god was the guardian of the Rainbow Bridge, which connects our world to that of Asgard. When Ragnarok comes, he will blow a horn to alert the rest of the gods, but this really won't make a difference. He and Loki will then slay each other. Heimdall was the son of Odin, but he also had 9 mothers. He was also the creator of social classes. He once proclaimed that a mortal boy was his son. I'm unsure if this boy was his biological son or if he was a boy he was adopting. But either way, Heimdall taught the boy runes and then sent him on his way. Later, that boy's son would share runic knowledge with Heimdall. Pausing to read the game's dialogue. Nice makeup. Or wait, are you even wearing any? So how was your first night in that old cottage? Your grandpa used to complain about that rickety old bed, but I think deep down he actually loved that house. You brought the ores I requested, thank you. These ores look to be of good quality. You can keep them, of course. I just wanted to see how the local geology was doing. And here's your payment as promised. abysmal. Not a single piece in the entire collection. What's this? You found something? Let me see it. Remarkable. It's very old. I'd love to study this in greater detail, but it is yours. I've got a favor to ask of you. Would you consider donating any new artifacts or materials that you find? We could make groundbreaking discoveries together. Oh, and who knows, if you keep donating, I might come across some interesting items to send your way. Think about it, will you? If you decide to donate, just bring the objects to the front desk. Returning to the discussion of the Norse pantheon. Bragi was a god of poetry, eloquence, and music. He was the son of Odin and welcomed many souls to Valhalla, as well as entertained the souls there. He would sing in the halls of Asgard, and his creation of poetry, as he was the god who created poetry, inspired humans to create, just as he did. He is often depicted playing a harp with a long beard and runes carved into his tongue. Bragi brought entertainment to human and god alike, while Forseti brought humanity and the gods justice and mediation. Of all the gods, he was the best at coming up with compromises, and his home Glitnir, which shone brightly and was made of silvers and gold, was seen as a place of mediation. Another goddess, Air, was revered by women, especially those with child. This is because she was a goddess of healing, particularly around childbirth. She would have also have been worshipped by doctors and maybe even soldiers, as she was said to pick many to bring back from the verge of death. Pausing to read dialogue. Ahoy there, miss. Heard there was a newcomer in town. Good to finally meet ya. I'm still trying to get unwind from a month out at the salty seas. It was a big haul. I sold a lot of good fish. Finally saved enough to buy me a new rod. Here, I want you to have my old fishing rod. It's important to me that the art of fishing stays alive. And hey, maybe you'll buy something from my shop once in a while. There's good water out here in the valley, all kinds of fish. Oh yeah, my shop's back up and now, so come by if you need supplies. I'll also buy anything you catch. If it smells, it sells. Haha. That's what my old pappy used to say anyway. Returning to the Norse pantheon. Kvasir, a god of wisdom and poetry, was a very literal symbol of the unity between the once two different pantheons that had merged into the one. After the war, when the pantheons were merging, gods from both sides of that conflict spat into the same vessel. The spit was then shaped into a man, and that man was Kvasir. Kvasir was said to be so wise that he could answer any question. He was also willing to answer those questions. He enjoyed sharing his knowledge and was often seen as a voice of reason. He even continued to share his knowledge after his death. He was killed by two dwarves while among mortals sharing his knowledge. After his death, these dwarves used his blood as well as some honey to make something called the Mead of Poetry. This mead was said to impart wisdom and or poetic inspiration to any who drank even a sip. Pausing to read dialogue. Oh hi, it's good to see you again. For me? Thank you! Back to the Norse pantheon and the Mead of Poetry. When the gods came for Kvasir's body, the dwarves claimed that he choked to death on his own words of wisdom and said nothing of the Mead of Poetry, which they gave to a giant they were feuding with as a peace offering. Later, Odin sent out 2 ravens to gather information, and they returned with news of the Mead of Poetry. You may recall that early in the video I told you that Odin thirsted for knowledge. Possibly because of that thirst for knowledge, or perhaps in an attempt to return Kvasir to Asgard, Odin sought out the Mead of Knowledge. To do this, he went to the fields of the giant's brother and convinced the enslaved people who worked these fields to kill each other. Now that the giant's brother had no one to work his fields, Odin disguised himself and went to the giant's brother. He offered to care for the fields alone through the summer in exchange for a single sip of the Mead of Knowledge. When it came time for Odin to claim his prize, the giant who possessed the Mead of Knowledge refused to share even one sip. Odin stoked a feud between the brothers that eventually gave him the opportunity to seduce the daughter of the giant who possessed the Mead of Poetry, who he eventually got to give him a single sip of the mead. However, when she brought him the mead, he drank all of it, or perhaps more aptly, sucked all of it into his mouth. When Odin returned to Asgard, he spat the mead out and shared it with the other gods. Kvasir may or may not have come back to life later, but if he did, he seems to have been more reclusive and less prominent throughout the mythology. Although there aren't many tales about her, one goddess who could never be mistaken for being insignificant is Idune. This is because she grows and safeguards the apples that give the gods their immortality. When the gods become old, they will eat one of her apples to become young once again. In one tale, Loki is forced by a giant to abduct Idune. Later, the other gods force him to retrieve her. To do so, he transforms her into a nut in order to transport her back to Asgard. The reason I bring up that specific tale is because there is evidence in early Europe of nuts and fruits being left at graves, specifically around Germany. And it is speculated this was done to honor her or somehow include her in burial rites. Pausing to read dialogue. The beach is a cool place to hang out and soak up the rays. You gotta spend time in the sun or else you'll get pale. What do you want? Go away. Hey Gus, give me another round. Hi, please relax and enjoy yourself. I work part-time at Gus's saloon. It pays the bills. Returning to Norse pantheon. The goddess Nott, the personification of night, travels across the sky pulled by a chariot, followed by her son, Dagr, the personification of day, causing the day-night cycle. Pausing to read dialogue. Take it easy. My nephew Shane has been staying at my place the last few months. He helps out with the chickens, so I'm not complaining. Returning to the Norse pantheon. Mani and Sol, the moon god and sun goddess, were said to have been chased by 2 wolves that wanted to devour them, eating the sun and moon themselves. Eclipses were said to happen when the wolves got a little too close. The goddess Hel safeguarded a realm that shared her name. It was an afterlife, perhaps an afterlife for the wicked. Hel was depicted having half the face of a beautiful woman and half the face of a blue skeleton. If you liked this video, please consider giving it a like, and if you'd like to see more like this, please consider giving me a follow. I will catch you in the next one, and I hope you have the best rest of your day.